Natasha, and thank you so much for joining me today. Well, recently I showed you in a little clearance haul that I did that I got these chipboard little butterflies in this case. Now these are from Paper Rose Studios, but there are lots and lots of different chipboard shapes and all sorts out there. So I thought I would show you how to use these today, or how I'm going to use them, at least one way to use them, because obviously there are lots of ways. So I believe these are laser cut chipboard. And there are 3 different sort of larger butterflies here that have the, parts of their innards sort of cut out, some detail, and then lots of little butterflies that we can work with. So I'm going to be working with the largest butterfly today. I'm going to take a piece of cardstock, and I want something to go behind this butterfly. Now, I'm going to draw around this with some pencil, and because I'm kind of going around the outside, I know that when I do the fussy cutting, I'm going to cut on the inside of this, so I know that I won't include the pencil marks, so that's fine. I'm going to be using some alcohol markers today to create this background, this kind of gradient background. However, of course, you could use anything you like to use this, any media. You could use some watercolors, you can use alcohol markers, you could just use normal felt pens, your kids' felt pens, and go for gold behind this. You can just use some pattern paper, you could use glitter paper, anything that you want. Some ombre glitter paper was what I was thinking, but I thought I wouldn't go too sparkly for this one, and you'll see why in a little bit. But lots and lots of options. Honestly, I try in my card making to just do things that I feel you could use different options for, if you know what I mean, the things that you perhaps have in your stash that you can look around. So you might not have butterfly chipboard shapes, but you might have something else, some flowers or some bees, or I don't know, anything. You might just have a house shapes or people shapes, or I don't know, anything, any sort of chipboard shapes, and you can make this technique work. So I am just showing you what I do with them because I got a lot of comments on how I might go about using them and turning them into a card. Luckily, they are very, very lightweight, so it doesn't bother me to put them on a card at all. Of course, they create some dimension, no more than regular foam tape. In my opinion, this is about the same height as foam tape would be. Now here I'm going to cut out the shape. As I said, I'm just going on the very inside of my pencil marks, and that just means it should sit just behind the chipboard. I'm using some little cutter bee scissors. These are just fussy cutting scissors, and there we can see, yeah, pretty much fits. Pretty good, pretty happy with that. Doesn't have to be perfect. The back doesn't have to look pretty because nobody will see it. So then I'm going to pop out a few more of these smaller butterflies. Now, the little hoarder within me couldn't throw out those inner pieces of the big butterfly, so I have popped those in a little container for later. Now, I'm going to take some VersaMark any embossing ink. To be honest, this is my older embossing ink, and this one has sort of, it's got stains and things on the foam of it, so I just use this one when I'm unsure of what the substrate is going to do to it, but it was absolutely fine. So then I'm going to ink this up with lots of ink, and then I'm going to put some gold embossing powder over top of this. Now you could, there are lots of different options here when it comes, you could just add acrylic paint, any paints over top of this. You could add some inks. You could, I don't know, you could color it in and see what you get. You could use some gold markers. You could use some paint markers. I don't know, you could try crayons. I have no idea. We can try all the things, but today I'm going to be trying embossing powder, and you can see that this melts beautifully. The embossing powder is attaching nicely, and also I'm going to do 2 layers of these, just because with one layer here you can see it's gorgeous, but there is a little bit of what I call pitting, and so if you do more than one layer, the more layers you get, the less pitting you're going to end up with. So I decided to do another layer, and that way you're just going to get that smooth round edges sort of look, and ever so slightly a little bit more dimension, I guess, too. So then I do have 3 of the butterflies. I have kind of a small, a medium, and a large of the smaller butterflies. And I'm going to do the same thing to these as well. Now those little ones are much easier and much smaller, and I am going to double dip them. I'm just using a pair of reverse tweezers to hold these, as I can kind of dip them. If you are super fast, once you have melted these ones, you can just dip them in. You don't need to add more of the embossing ink. So you kind of end up putting some of the molten sort of embossing powder, the melted embossing powder that still hasn't set, dip it in quickly, and then you can get another layer and you can keep going. And this is very addictive. You can keep going and keep going and keep going. But at some point I need to stop. So now we are going to, here is the card base, and we're going to work on the background a little bit. I'm using some mint tape to get a gorgeous border here. I didn't want any more dimension by adding any more paper, because I could have used a matting layer here instead of masking it off, but I chose to mask. Now this is my cloud stencil. Yes, this is just a cloud die cut from a piece of cardstock that I just keep reusing over and over and over, because this does the job perfectly. And yes, there are gorgeous stencils, there are gorgeous die cuts out here that do the same thing. You can cut your own and that is going to look gorgeous too. So whatever you have, I'm just adding some tumbled glass distress oxide ink. Again, any ink is going to work too. And then I'm just going to do some very, very just light clouds in the background. These don't have to be perfect at all. Now you can laugh at my drawing skills here, because I'm trying to draw a straight line around the edge, like kind of using the masking tape. Obviously the masking tape is thin here, but I want a straight, messy look. So I kind of did my squiggly lines to create a border. I usually do those. This is like creating the squiggly lines but having a straight base to it. So now I'm trying to go a little bit kind of squiggly, if this all makes sense, but it just means that you've got those really sharp, crisp borders there. Now this is the Botanical Borders with Sentiments from scrapbook.com. This is an oldie but a favourite. I love this one. It has kind of one of everything on it, and I'm just going to use the Thinking of You. Now this is why I didn't use the kind of glittery sparkly paper. I felt like that was just a little too bright and cheery, but I'm going to go, I've still gone kind of bright with my colours, and that's okay. I'm stamping this out with some VersaFine Onyx black ink, which gives a crisp, beautiful look every time. And otherwise I wouldn't be, I'd be using a stamping platform to stamp this if I wasn't sure if it was going to turn out nicely. But I have faith with this one, and it does. It turns out beautifully. Now, I am going to do my little trick here with the clear embossing powder and pop some of this over, because I promise you that I would smudge this. I am not good at waiting. I'm not patient. And I especially do not want to ruin the card at this point. I've put in the effort, so I made sure that if I just add that quick layer of heat embossing, that clear layer, then we are good to go. Now, this is where you can see those gorgeous crisp borders. They kind of have a crisp outside line and then squiggles inside. I'm really, really liking this at the moment. And it also separates that blue cloud background nicely from the white border there. Then from here, it's just a matter of kind of starting to put things together. The butterflies obviously need to go on here still, and I have got my big butterfly that I still need to put together. Now, I just used some liquid glue on the back of this. If you want to, you could use, there are some of those glue dot sheets. So when you put down the image or the whatever you're trying to glue, you kind of put it down onto the thousands and thousands of little dots, that sort of thing. That would work really well here, but liquid glue just worked just fine for me. And then I kind of put little dots everywhere, and then I kind of take my finger and I tap just to make sure it's even and there's no sort of bits that are going to squish out so to speak, because I just want to make sure that everything looks nice and crisp and clean there on my little colorful background. So that pretty much just moves into place. It's really easy to line up. Give it a good squish so I know it's not going anywhere. And then from here I can just put some liquid glue on the back as well and then attach this. Now I don't mind at all that the wings are going outside of that border a little bit. I quite like that look. I quite like, it almost emphasizes the border to me. And then I just left this piece in because I thought you would all appreciate to see, I fiddle around too. I switch things around, I play things with things around, and I just see, you know, where I might want them to go, where they look best. I don't automatically always just know where they go, and I often play around, and I often cut that out because, you know, it's not really riveting watching, but you should definitely know that that is something that I do. I definitely play with placement a lot. So that is today's card. We are done and dusted. I hope that you enjoyed this card on using chipboard in our card making. As usual, the links are below. This chipboard is on clearance right now as of this voiceover as well. And other than that, I will see you in the next video.